So many great scenes here at Gulfstream Park, but that footage probably shot on a different day in terms of the weather, including the sun setting on our good friend, the mighty Pegasus, out in the parking lot here at Gulfstream Park. In fact, maybe a furlong and a half from the mighty Pegasus is our third-floor clubhouse studio as we settle in for this Sunday edition of Gulfstream Today. Jason Blewett and Acacia Courtney, so good to have you with us. You might have to put the umbrella away, though. Looks like we might, fingers crossed, be clearing up a bit.
I certainly hope so. It looks like, tracking the weather, it looks like we should be clearing up as the day does move on. The sun was trying to peek out when we did head into the studio for this morning's show, but we are sloppy and off the turf once again today. A few scratches, so of course it's good to have that information early. You can rework your handicapping before you do take a stab at those multi-race wagers a little bit later on. And of course, one of the big stories, 117,000 plus in the Rainbow Six.
On this Sunday afternoon, our getaway weekend in the month of May. In fact, as it stands, we are smack dab in the middle of this three-day holiday weekend with Memorial Weekend and Memorial Day basically upon us. A friendly reminder, and it's tradition here at Gulfstream Park in South Florida, we will have a rare Monday live racing card here tomorrow afternoon, rain or shine, of course, with the first race post time of 1:15 p.m. And if things start to clear up a little bit, maybe we get a couple of turf races in. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But Memorial Day action here tomorrow at Gulfstream Park, and hard to believe, just 13 days out from Justified trying to win the Belmont Stakes and the Triple Crown.
It is, as Jason mentioned, the month of May almost done. We do have some stakes action at Gulfstream on Monday as well with the home of the Brave. It's 1.5 miles on the turf. If it is rained off, it will go to 1.25 miles on the main track. But pretty excited about that card as well. And of course, following the Triple Crown fever that everybody does have this time of year.
Absolutely. As we get you up to speed with what's on tap, 11 today, and we jumpstart the program a little after 1:15 p.m. and sit tight, and that is a live look of a bit of an overcast picture here in Hallandale Beach. But Acacia will have that 50-cent early pick 5 from sloppy Gulfstream Park. Race number 2 is our opening super high 5 on the afternoon with no carryover, and we eclipsed 100 G's, as you were saying, in yesterday's Rainbow Six.
We did indeed. 6 figures plus for that Rainbow Six jackpot pool, 117,755 to be exact. I'll take a stab at the sequence today, and then we wrap things up as always. The 50-cent late pick 5 starts in race number 7 today.
And race number 7 does feature the first filly, the first daughter of Horse of the Year, Have the Grace. This is the first horse I've seen out of Have the Grace, even though the number 1, Heavenly Grace, in today's 7th race has already run 3 times. Once as a 2-year-old, she ran a couple times in the Big Apple last season at 3. Anxious to see what she can do, even though she was scheduled to run on the turf. She's obviously bred to handle the main.
Oh, she certainly is, and she was pretty disappointing in her first couple of starts, so be interested to see. Looks like she's working well for Ralph Nix.
All right, sounds good, as she runs against a fresh Danny Gargan claim, who's going to take a lot of beating in Bogulator. All right, on to the action here, and that includes Acacia's 50-cent early pick 5 play. I'm assuming, whoa, you didn't single Pletcher here in the first.
No, well,
whoa.
I was going to try to beat him anyway. I actually was pretty intrigued by a couple other horses in here, and I do think, honestly, he ran a very, very good race last time out. He's not the most consistent horse. That's the biggest head scratcher in here. I know he's a $150,000 son that's kind of gone down the claiming ranks, and we'll talk about him a little bit, but I did include Duke of Miami for some backup in here. I don't think, yes, he's the horse to beat, and he could win by the length of the stretch, but we'll see what we get from him amongst that field in race number 1. As we get on to race number 2, our precious, in my mind, on the wet track is going to be the one to beat. I backed myself up with the number 9, Rethink Me, coming in off the main track only list. Has some speed for Rohan Crichton. Going 3 deep in race number 3, and just using 2 horses in the 4th race. Dizzy Gillespie was so impressive last time out. We'll see what we get from him. Trying to repeat that performance, I do like Fish Fan on the outside. And at race 5, we cash out with a race originally scheduled for the turf, now to be run at 1 mile on the main, and I'm using the number 2 outside looking in, as well as the 8 Friend Zone, who has some wet track pedigree, some dirt pedigree, so I think that might be one to keep an eye on for trainer Chad Summers.
I had noticed that as well. Shackleford out of an Orientate Dam, the wet track pedigree, at least at a cursory glance, appears to be there for the 8 friend zone and the cash out to the early pick 5. Couple of MTOs in the mix, including the 13 Peace Accord, who's burned some money and is 0 for 11. Perhaps he has landed in the right spot, but we'll wait and see what he does, and we'll certainly talk about race 5 from front to back in just a couple of moments here. But we got to get through race number 1 as we start the action on the main, going 7 furlongs with this 3 and up $25,000 maiden claimer. Accumulator probably won't be any higher than 1 to 5, especially with 2 defections on the outside. That makes this a 5-horse field and a 5-horse cast to start the action, and I just didn't know where else to go here outside of the big favorite, who, again, I don't see any higher than 1 to 5.
No, he's going to be a very short price, and we'll show that last race because it was a very good effort, all things considered. I'd like to see him break a bit better today. You see, we're going to start with the head-on of the break, and he's the number 4, and he does take a little bit of a turn, knocks into the gate a bit, and as we look at the pan shot of the break after this, you see there in the yellow cap and the blue colors of Starlight Racing, he immediately spots the field a couple of lengths. So hopefully he can break a little bit cleaner because he is the type of horse that I think is maybe stronger when he can be up a bit closer to the pace. Had to expend some energy early. Now he's hustled up, and there he is. He had a late run, but he just couldn't catch Hail to the King, who was very impressive to get the win that day. So again, a big effort in defeat from Accumulator. This just might be the easiest spot that he's going to find, and maybe this is where he'll win.
It's probably now or never for a horse who, again, is every bit the odds-on favorite he appears for Todd Pletcher and Tyler Gaffalione, who comes out of a 2-win Saturday. In fact, Tyler's sitting tied for first in the standings, along with jockey Nick Juarez, 39 wins apiece. Miguel Vasquez also seeing action today. He's got 38. And then you've got Romero Ramsey, who's done a good job as an apprentice. Both he and Reylu Gutierrez have gained some momentum and traction in the colony. And you've got Duke of Miami like I do. He'll be second choice. We've got the cold 4-5.
He's coming off of a layoff, but training well at Palm Meadows. That last work was very good, and it was on a track that was labeled as good that day. So has some experience running on a track with some moisture.
And we may pick up ultimately where we left off yesterday. We ran a dozen here at GP, 7 winning favorites in all, including Solve at the end of the day. And again, Accumulator every bit the big favorite in today's first race. As we flip the page, we're on to race number 2, 5/8 of a mile here on the main. So a quick one for these 3 and up fillies and mares. Pretty competitive and tricky, certainly a deeper race than the first half of the early double today. And what complicates, at least in my eyes, this field of 7 is the likely fast pace. I see a pace scenario in this race from Our Precious on the rail, the number 2 horse, the other Cat, and moving towards the outside, a horse like the 9 Rethink Me. I think these horses at some point may hook up 3 apart across the track and may set the race up for a bit of a closer. Do I love the layoff of about 130 days with the 3 Baby Alaudet? I really don't, and do note this horse was a vet scratch back on March 1st and appears to have a bit of a spotty work tab since that March 1st card, but this is a horse who's run well without getting the lead, and I just thought the race flow would set up a run.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that she's going to make a nice closing run. I don't think Our Precious is a need-the-lead type. I think that she'll be fine as far as the pace does go. My biggest concern with Baby Alaudet, and I remember this race back in July because I was actually up at Bobby V's in Stamford, Connecticut, watching this race when Tiz a Blizzard won on the wet track, and I liked Baby Alaudet that day, and she hated the surface. So I'm concerned about how she's going to handle it this afternoon. And this barn I do like off the layoff, or maybe 1 or 2 off the layoff, but 21% for Francisco D'Angelo. He's done a great job. Yep. Our Precious, though, has a really good record on the wet track. 3 starts, a win in 2 seconds. Broker Maiden and Special Weight Company here at Gulfstream back in August on a track with some moisture in it. A good, respectable second behind a nice Jonathan Thomas horse trainee in Tilly's Lily on the wet track before that. So I like her record, and just second off the bench, thinking she'll improve.
Let's move on to race number 3. Another short one here as we go 6 furlongs over the sloppy main with this 3 and up filly and mare $12,500 claimer, a scheduled dirt race and a competitive one at that. This is one of my favorite races on the card this afternoon, and I think before we go any further, we should really mention, aside from having a chalky Saturday here with those 7 winning favorites, we were dealing with the main track very fair and even. You could win on the lead, you could win tracking, and even a horse like Sav, I get he was about 3 to 5 in the nightcap, but you could also win making making big, wide outside runs. So we hope that continues today. And I just want to say I think the track super and his crew have done an excellent job these last few weeks at Gulfstream with the amount of rain we've had.
We have had a lot of rain, and this track handles water very well. And we've done a great job preparing for any sort of weather that we might be dealing with on any given day here. And of course, the jockeys are really familiar with this track and know how to handle it and put their horses in the right spot. And you do see jockeys taking notice of any sort of trends as far as the track. Sometimes we see the rail not being a spot where you want to be. I haven't seen that in the last couple of days. I agree with you. I think it's been very even.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the 4 Cowtown Spirit is where I went. Do I love? And this is the Catch-22. She comes back off a bit of a layoff from October 5th through Derby weekend. In fact, her last start here, May 5th, for trainer Victor Barboza Jr. And I'm very encouraged that Victor brought her back off that aforementioned layoff protected. She was not entered to be claimed, which is great. And the fact that he sees fit, and she didn't run all that well. She showed some speed, got a little tired, but 3 weeks later, she is doubled up in claiming price from $6,250 to $12,500, and I think that's a very good sign for a barn in general that just has solid numbers across the board, but does really well with their second off the layoff runners on dirt. That might be one little category I would love to see DRF add to Formulator, how horses do when they're protected, if that could be an option maybe to click on.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point, because you do wonder what the kind of thought process was for the barn or the connections beforehand, and not putting this horse in for a tag, because we know the trainer Victor Barboza does very well in the claiming game, and that includes putting horses in spots where they can win and potentially be claimed. So I agree with you. She had a good win on the wet track at Gulfstream Park West before the layoff. I thought the last race was a bit lackluster, but I absolutely respect the connections. I had all along liked the number 6 Miss KOC for trainer Kathleen O'Connell. We found out actually the owner tweeted at us the horse is named after Kathleen O'Connell. So Miss KOC, pretty fun. I just think that the dirt is her preferred running surface. She was just absolutely running ahead of everybody else by open lengths on the dirt at Tampa. We'll see if she can translate that form here.
Sounds good. Let's move on to race number 4 as we go 7/8 here on the main field of 6, a half dozen ready to battle in this 3-and-up optional claimer. You could take out the number 3 Nephew Howard D, who would have been a pretty big price and was a horse that brought a little fuel to the fire in regards to that potential race flow and pace. And pace could be pretty quick in this race with King Power, who is unequivocally a need-the-lead type along the rail. And we'll see where the 4 Dizzy Gillespie is placed early. That horse has some speed, as does my top pick, the number 2 Indian Scout. I don't really know if there's a horse to beat in this race. It's a really evenly matched field from King Power, Indian Scout, Dizzy Gillespie, maybe a little Big Awesome coming in from Tampa. He might be a little cheaper than these. And the number 7 Fish Fan on the outside. Really good race. Now with Dizzy Gillespie, we've got a stat here with trainer Rohan Crichton, and I know you've been a fan of his for quite some time, since I moved to Florida a little over a year ago, and this is only a 6-horse starting sample, but do keep in mind, it's a very specific stat, and one in which, well, Rohan's gone 3 for 6, which really may bode well for Dizzy Gillespie when you consider just how sharp and good this horse was first off the claim for Rohan, getting the win by daylight, winning by almost a country mile last out.
And he beat Solve, who, as you mentioned, came back to win the nightcap yesterday, so it's already turned out to be a bit of a key race that he's running in, and it's amazing because he went from one good barn to another, and you do kind of wonder, well, where did that come from? And now he's stepping up in class. That being said, it was just so impressive and so easily done, and back that up with some good stats. I agreed with you as far as the pace scenario does go. I didn't end up changing my picks. I liked the 7 Fish Fan all along. I thought coming in, look at the company that he faced last time out. He was running against Blings Express and Harry He last time. Just 2 really solid war horses. Good record on a wet track as well, 3 for 5. So he's going to be my pick. I hope he sits a good trip.
Oh, he's a tough old horse. Not the oldest veteran in this upcoming 4th race. I figured he was because he's an 8-year-old and it is only a 6-horse field. But sure enough, the number 5, My Charming Clyde, 11, as that horse is out for his 108th lifetime start. Pretty amazing runner here, the 5, My Charming Clyde, even though he will be perhaps the outsider as trainer Dennis Ward looks for that milestone.
He is. Dennis Ward still sitting at 999, and it would be pretty fitting to to have a horse like this be that milestone winner.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Indian Scout obviously in very good form. He may have to rate a little bit or at least track the #1 King Power. And Roberto Alvarado knows this horse well. And you get a real sense at what trainer Tammy Levy is all about and how just talented she is as a horsewoman, reclaiming this son of First Defense. And he has just gone through the roof since being reclaimed.
What a good move that has been. I mean, you look at his record in his last couple of starts, even just beaten by his stablemate 2 starts back. So she has just continued to do an excellent job. This is another horse with a good record on a wet track.
Race number 5 as we close out that Sunday 50-cent early pick 5. We'll go at a mile on the main track. 8 furlongs, field of 8. These are $25,000 3 and up maiden claimers like you. And when you get down to the minutia with the family of the 8 friend zone, there were a couple of siblings, only 2 to try off tracks, and they were a combined 0 for 5. But like you, I said, you know what? I don't care about that. Shackelford orientate against this field second time out. Hopefully this is the right spot for the 8 friend zone. But what complicates things, I think, Acacia, in this back end, the early pick 5, every horse, and they're all in the same boat, but they've all got to go on the dirt today, and they've all got to stay a mile. This is not a 5 or 5.5 furlong sprint over the dirt.
It is going to be a bit tough, and I think the fact that Friend Zone debuted going 2 turns on the turf, and looking back and remembering what he is like physically, I think that he has the ability to stay the mile. The Dam also won on a wet track, so there is a little bit of pedigree there, and there's some qualities half to a horse that's grade 3 place. So hopefully that's just going to help him. All of that just kind of rise a little bit above this field. I certainly respect the speed of Peace Accord to the outside. I did just prefer a few others. I was intrigued by the #2 outside looking in, who's run on the dirt only against special weight company. So maybe that's just going to be a bit of a key as far as a clash drop on the main track. And Sammy Camacho continuing to ride in good form.
Yeah, I had a laugh and chuckle, and I don't have that horse in my super, but his 2 dirt races, the #2 outside looking in, aptly named, debuting against Timeline and Giuseppe the Great, and then coming back against Command Post and Alcor, 2 Todd Pletcher trained horses at the time. He's had a rough go of it on the dirt. I don't think he meets that caliber today in race number 5 for trainer Patrick Biancone as we settle in 117,000 plus in that Sunday Rainbow 6. So put the mud boots on. We'll be back with the sequence after this.
At ExpressBet, we celebrate the champions that make horse racing great. That's why we provide more ways to bet from more places than ever. We've built an entire family of brands to give players more of the rewards they deserve, give bettors the information they need to win, and provide a community for horse bettors. Because the best way to support the champions of horse racing is to champion horse racing. ExpressBet, we are racing.
And Gulfstream is pulling away. Gulfstream blows them away with an eye-opening performance. Awesome again has won. Gulfstream kicking clear. Julie the
Horse of the Year and Hall of Famer, the mighty Ghost Zapper, and we do have a horse out of a Horse of the Year and future Hall of Famer, and Hob de Grace running in today's 7th, which is kind of cool and adds a little spice and flavor to a Sunday card on this Memorial Day weekend here at Gulfstream with Acacia and Jason. So it is about the Rainbow 6. We continue to build in the carryover kitty, and what are we doing today?
All right, we'll show you my ticket, and you can see I ended up spreading in the last leg.
Yeah.
I don't normally use 5 horses, but I used 2 deep to start things off in here. You have a first-time starter from George Weaver, and then the 4 Wolf Eyes, who, just looking at the field assembled, I think that this filly might just be the logical one and be in the right place. In race number 7, I'm using 3 horses. That still is a pretty good race and a good size field. Race number 8 today, going 2 deep as well. The 1 Elastico, who had a good win on a wet track last time out, and the 3 Ballistico. So a little bit of a rhyme there in race number 8 as we move on to race number 9. 2 deep there as well, and 2 in the 10th. The 3-4, 3-4 double for me, and spreading in the 11th. That goes from 7.5 furlongs on the turf to to 7 on the main. And I thought, looking at pedigree, looking at past performances, there were several horses that you could make a case for that really could handle this off track.
Not a layup cash out by any means. You've got we get it was a scheduled turf race, but keep in mind, there are 5 main track onlys in the race, and then entered in the body a horse by the name of Majestic Tom, who ran out of his mind last time in that 5 furlong off the turf.
Yeah, it still is a really good race, and hats off to the racing office for having the coverage with the main track onlys, and it seems like almost all of them have a shot, too.
Definitely, no doubt. All right, 3 and up, fillies and mares in this opening leg. Field of 7, and this won't be the toughest race for even maiden 10s I think you're going to run across this spring and summer here at Gulfstream Park. But that said, it's still a pretty odd race. I was not expecting when I saw the condition to see trainer George Weaver's name, and let alone a firster, in this case the number 2, Leilani's Lady, who is by a stallion who's only got 3 prior foals who are racing, named Beauchois, who was more of a second level, maybe grade 3 allowance type, on the fringe of that during his racing days on the turf for trainer Barclay Tagg. I remember him because I always liked Beauchois, but just an odd horse here with George's firster, who's got Gaffleone and the 2, Leilani's Lady, and with Tyler riding in a race like this, might just be overbet.
I would think so, too. And you just never really know. You don't know if maybe this is a place to kind of get some experience for this horse. The fact that she's debuting for the $10,000 tag raises some questions. The mare was a 6-time dirt sprinter. The only other foal that she's produced is 0 for 19 on the track. So some questions there for sure. Maybe that's a reason that she is debuting for a low tag. As far as the 4 Wolf Eyes, she dropped to this level last time. She was the favorite. She was beaten by 5 lengths to be second. She's had her share of chances.
I know.
But she's a horse I think both of us somewhere along the way have tried to get Wolf Eyes home. She did run well on a wet track behind Rose to Fame and Blonde Bomber in her debut.
She's supposed to like the off track with the Wildcat Air. This is the spot. Unless for the level, in context to these 10K maiden claimers, the Weaver firster is really good. Wolf Eyes, this is the race. She's supposed to get that shiny new maiden diploma at around 3:30 or 4 o'clock this afternoon in Sunday's 6th race. Sounds good?
I think it sounds good.
All right, let's move on to race number 7. Ultimately, the 7th race, originally scheduled for the turf at a 2-turn mile, which cuts back to a 1-turn mile on the dirt, features a field of 8, and I think most people might just be happy using the 2 inside horses, and some people might even be singling the number 2 Bogulator just because, despite having a lot of chances, she's run pretty consistently and is first off the claim for trainer Danny Gargan. For my late pick 5, I saw fit, though, to use the number 1 Heavenly Grace defensively. I would not want to get beat in and off the turf race where some of the horses in the field just don't look all that competitive on paper. Don't want to get beat by a horse with that insane pedigree by Tappet out of a Horse of the Year and Hall of Famer and Hob de Grace. So the 1 Heavenly Grace and Bogulator for me to start things out in this $36 late pick 5. I went too deep in race number 8, and we lost a major favorite in that race, Acacia. Don't you think in the 8 Take Your Place?
That looks like the absolute spot for Take Your Place. That really made that race so much harder.
Absolutely. Not only is it a more competitive race, but I think the absence of Take Your Place has altered the pace and race flow. In 4 Freedoms, I moved up quite a bit in that spot as we have race number 8 on the dirt for those $20,000 to $16,000 claimers. 3-horse spread in the 9th. I'm going to be honest, I just guess with the 3 horses I feel have the best dirt form, and Foolish Prince is the horse to beat. His dirt debut, not a bad effort at 30 to 1 here back in the middle of March for trainer David Fox. 3-horse spread for me in race number 10. Some guesswork to be had. Somebody, speaking of breaking your maiden today, someone's going to get a shiny brand new maiden diploma. Can you believe it? Someone's exiting that 10th race today and will be a maiden no longer.
Somebody's going to win.
Yep, somebody is going to cross that finish line first. And Acacia used 5 in race number 11. And I get that because you do have that army of main track onlys with a handful of horses who are entered for the dirt. And then you also have the 11 Majestic Tom, who is perhaps the most intriguing horse, along with Heavenly Grace, running on the card, the entire card today at Gulfstream Park, off a big, big win, and a fast win at that, and an off-the-turf 5-furlong sprint. But let's move back to this opening leg. And Bogulator, Taylor, I would imagine, is going to be favored here, despite the fact that she's burned some money, including a loss last time out at 4-5. But it's fresh Gargan here off the claim, so I had to take her on top, and you did too.
It is, and even though this is a turf replay, I did want to show what happened to her last time, because all in all, that she ran very, very well. She was the number 4. This is up at Aqueduct. We're going to start from the break, and she just takes a little stumble. You see right there at the start. So that's just kind of what happened at the beginning of the race. Everybody else starts to hustle up. She's forced to kind of settle down inside. Now we get to the quarter pole. There was a long shot. You can see 18-1 right now, setting the pace. And as horses start to close, again, I thought that she ran very well in defeat in this race. Coming up between horses, she showed some gameness. She's got a run on the wet track. She ran 4th on the mud 2 starts back in Special Weight Company at Aqueduct and actually ran a good race. We'll see if today's going to be the day for her. 0 for 16 already, but maybe she just meets the right field.
It could be a case of that, and she's also got, and Mark Hennig, not an easy outfit, not an easy trainer to claim off of, but she does have, again, Danny Gargan with the first off the claim maiden backing her up today. And here's a stat with trainer Danny Gargan, who's really done a good job getting a lay of the land here, and he's left some horses obviously well past the championship season here in South Florida, and he's had a good meet. He had a first off the claim winner, a win during Preak this week, and I think this stat shows you that he knows how to properly claim and spot horses who are maidens, and I would imagine the bulk of this sample is more or less made up of maidens that had lost a number of times, like Bogulator has, and he's able to get them on the right track. Let's see how she does against the one Heavenly Grace. Are you excited to just see what she looks like in the flesh today?
I am, and she's been working well, and you'd have to imagine, being by such a flashy pedigree, she's going to be a beautifully put together horse. I mean, you look at her mother, $2.5 million earner on the track, just an absolutely spectacular race mare. So I'm excited to see. She hasn't raced in 9 months. Like I said, she was disappointing in her last couple of starts before the layoff. So maybe she'll come back and be able to get her feet back underneath of her.
Here's race number 8 as we cut back here on the dirt. 3/4 of a mile, 6-pack set to go in race number 8, a 3 and up $20,000 to $16,000 claimer. Again, losing the number 8, take your place, major defection. That puts, I think, the ball in the court as far as early speed goes to the number 6, 4 Freedoms, who I had liked. Thought he would run well off the claim for Marcus Vitale last time out. Found a mile a little too far. This appears to be a better spot, but I certainly respect both horses for trainer Angel Quiroz in the 2 King Wildcat and KK's Revolver, as that barn has had a good run of things, and you and I both have in different races, but Francisco D'Angelo, the trainer, the 1 Elastico, on top today.
And I do still think Elastico is going to sit a good trip. I believe this horse was a very big price in the morning line, and I had actually liked him all along, but he had a win on the wet track going the mile last time. So he's turning back in distance, and that's going to be the question for him. But I do think that he's a solid horse, and he's, again, going to sit a good trip. As far as the pace goes, I think that the 7 Tornero might try to go a bit with 4 Freedoms, but I love him on the turn back. This is really going to be the right spot for him. Ballistico was the one that really intrigued me most with some wet track pedigree, and Miguel Vasquez picking up the mount today, always intriguing.
No, you get Romero Ramsey on Elastico and Miguel on Ballistico, and Miguel's been a long shot player's best friend this meet at Gulfstream. Big priced exacta for you, by the way.
Yes, I get some prices in this one.
Holy smokes. And keep in mind, it's only a field of 6, and Acacia trying to really light up the tote board. And we've been told the sun is actually making an appearance here as we are on the air with you, and you'll get a live shot once we sign off in about 3 minutes. But let's move on. Speaking of 3 more to talk about, including race number 9. 7/8 on the main, a 2 lifetime 3 and up claiming race. I, again, did not have a very strong opinion in this race once it was moved to the dirt. And the more I looked around between Foolish Prince, who I think will be favored and is the horse to beat, the number 4, Andrew the Bull, and towards the outside, the number 9, Schweetz, who's a bit of an unknown on an off track. I thought one of those 3 would probably win here.
And Foolish Prince ran a very good race in debut on the dirt, and Dave Fox putting a horse back on the dirt or keeping a horse on the dirt with an off the track or off the turf race, excuse me, usually good numbers for him when he decides to keep a horse in.
All right, let's move on to race number 10. Late double begins, field of 8, and these are $10,000 3 and up filly mare claimers. Tongue-in-cheek comment that someone is going to get a maiden diploma and will be a maiden no longer when this race is hung official. A bit later on today at Gulfstream Park. But, man, there's just not a ton of form to really sink your teeth into here. And ultimately, that's the main reason why I'm thinking, along with you, off a respectable debut, that the 3 horse, the Great Kath, who wasn't great but ran fine first time out, she's the horse to beat. A good effort.
A very respectable effort first time out behind Rethink Me. And look at the record for trainer Rodolfo Garcia this meet. He's had 17 starters with 4 winners, batting about 24%. So maybe a barn that you'll get some nice prices on and one to keep an eye on.
All right, race number 11 as we close down the day. Field of 9, worth hanging out for the entire
This will
card.
be a good race still, I think.
This is not a run-of-the-mill maiden claimer or just a race with a 4-horse field. This is a good one, and again, good job by the racing office having some protection and coverage with the 5 main track onlys and then the 11 Majestic Tom in the race. And Pete Aiello and I debated the merits of that May 5th off the turf race here on this show about a week ago, because the runner-up in that race behind Majestic Tom in Smart Dude was returning, and I had liked the horse last, I think, Sunday, the day after the Preakness, and Pete was very much against Smart Dude. In the end, Pete was more right than I was, because although Smart Dude ran second, he really took a pretty big drop in the Beyer department from an 84 that stuck out like a sore thumb down to a 70. So again, I think the jury's still very much out with that big fig last time out with Majestic Tom, who also, and he's probably going to be favored here off that race, he's got to handle 7/8 too.
He does. He's stretching out a bit. He's going 2 turns on the turf. I don't think distance necessarily going to be the problem for him. He's got some wet track pedigree for sure, and trainer Aubrey Mirage been going very well. 2 winners on the other day. 2 wins in a row. Any horse, especially at this level, trying to win 3 in a row is always a big ask, no matter what the surface is. I, like you, went with the 5 Prince Tito, who has a lot of wet track experience. In fact, 3 starts, 2 seconds and a third, so no wins, but he's always run very well in a wet track. Finally managed to break through and get that second career victory last time. He's just been so consistent. I still think Flow Motion is the best horse in the race. How will he handle the surface is the question.
Yeah, that is a tricky call. He is bred to like the dirt, being by Warrior's Reward, but it does make you think and go, what's the deal? Because he is a 4-year-old. He obviously has, again, aesthetically speaking, more of a dirt pedigree, but he's clearly been kept for a reason, you might think, on the synthetic and the turf, but we'll see how he does for trainer Mark Casse. It's a fun little race to end this Sunday, May the 27th here at Gulfstream Park. And in a word of fun, how about Pete Aiello coming your way? When I think of Pete, I think of fun, and he's coming up next, right?
Yes.
With those Sunday scratches and changes, quite a few given the weather here. Best of luck, and we'll see you shortly before race number 1.